In Scripture, the right to private property is nowhere stated, but everywhere assumed. Look closely though, and you'll find a guide to property laws hidden in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. The author of Genesis, traditionally identified as Moses, got the mother of all writing assignments. In 50 short chapters, he had to describe everything from the creation of the universe to the Jews' arrival in Egypt. With such space limits, he had to summarize a lot. Everything from the beginning of the universe to the creation of human beings, for example, gets just 25 verses. And yet one obscure event involving the purchase of a plot of land gets its own chapter. In Genesis 23, after Sarah dies, Abraham asks the Hittites for a plot of land to bury his wife. The Hittites offer him any spot he wishes. So Abraham surveys the land and chooses the cave of Machpelah, which Ephron the Hittite owns at the end of his field. Ephron offers to give it to Abraham, but the Jewish patriarch insists on buying the plot for the full price, 400 shekels of silver. And he does it at the city gate in plain view of the other Hittites. Then we read, "So the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, throughout the whole area, passed to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites, in the presence of all who went in at the gates of his city." Okay, what's all this about? Genesis is a grand epic that starts with God creating the universe. In chapter 12, it narrows to the history of the Jews, God's chosen people. But right in the middle of it, we stumble into a Bronze Age real estate deal. One respected biblical scholar called the passage pedantic and almost comic. Not the stuff of epics for sure. But Moses thought this event was worth recording. Why? Here we see Abraham acquiring legal title to the land. Even though Abraham is in the land of Canaan, which has already been promised to his descendants, he follows the Hittite custom for buying land down to the last detail. The boundaries, the price, the exchange of money, everything is done publicly. Why? Because private property isn't really private property if other people don't recognize it as such. If you live in the United States, Europe, Japan, or a former British colony, you may take such procedures for granted until you compare societies that have them with those that don't. Many parts of the world today still lack rules for buying and titling land as formal as those recorded in Genesis 23. That's one reason so many people in those parts of the world are so poor. The fate of an entire nation can hinge on whether it respects the right to property. The author of Genesis knew that over 3,000 years ago, and he preserved an example in detail, just in case we forget.